on. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to VUX World, the first episode back after VUX at Voice 22, which was a roaring success, if I do say so myself. It was absolutely fantastic. Fabio, did you you weren't at Voice Summit because I would have seen you there, but were you following the
No.
Voice Summit kind of event? Did you kind of tune in at any point in time?
Yeah, I was following on LinkedIn, like all the posts and the comments. A bunch of the people that I follow on LinkedIn were there. So it seems to be a very exciting event. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was like LinkedIn come to life is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
It was like LinkedIn in real life. Everyone who either I haven't seen for a long time or hadn't met before, or had met a number of times, but it was always in a situation where they had a black monitor outline around their head. So it was kind of good to, good to be kind of back in person and meeting people and stuff like that. It was really good. We had VUX at Voice 22 presented by Core AI, which was on the Tuesday. We had some fantastic sessions there. We heard from Florida Blue and Core AI. We heard from Golden Nugget Casinos and Poly AI. A whole bunch of case studies, which is really, really good to get under the kind of skin of. And hopefully, we'll see what happens. But we may well be back next year. And then I went to New York for a little while.
Good.
That was nice. Have you been to New York?
I've been to New York, yes.
Yeah, God,
A few times. Yeah.
absolutely
I used to live in New Haven.
right.
I studied like there for 1 year. So I used to go to New York first.
Oh, so
Yeah,
good, so
it's
good.
awesome.
Yeah, it was. I just thought I was on Home Alone the whole time. I was just walking around trying to find all the scenes from Home Alone. But it was really, it was really good. Jet lag affected me on the way back. Definitely,
Oh,
last week was a nightmare. I was moving house and I was just like riding on 5 hours sleep a night. I had to get up with Artie, my son, to get him to school. But I was on US time, so I wasn't feeling tired until like 12 o'clock midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning, so it was a bit mental. But yeah, hopefully I'm through that now. Uh,
good that you're back.
yes, yeah, back and ready to go, ready to rumble, definitely, and definitely excited to get into this conversation. Can't wait to get into this conversation with you around Scotiabank and the work that you're doing there, and your experience, broadly speaking, outside of that as well, because you've got a lot of experience in conversational AI and business automation and stuff like that. So, definitely looking forward to getting into
My
that
pleasure.
conversation. But before we do, a quick shout out to those who are tuning in. If you are so today, we're going to get into Scotiabank and how Scotiabank is using conversational AI. On next Thursday, a week today, on the 3rd of November, we'll also have Nova KBM, Alexandra Badar Turk, who is the digital banking operations director, is joining us to share the Nova KBM case study. And what's interesting about that is that the chatbot that they used, that they've created, it's in Slovenia. It's one of Slovenia's market leading banks, and they had a language problem, obviously, because the bot needs to speak Slovenian. So they had to create a brand new language support, which they managed to do, and their NPS scores prior to conversational AI. I can't remember specifically what the figures are. We'll have to tune in next Thursday to find out the actual figures. But they boosted their NPS scores dramatically through the implementation of this conversational AI assistant. So next week's webinar, it's a registration-based webinar. You have to register to get the invite and attend. Next week's webinar will be diving into that case study, what the current business situation was, how the whole kind of conversational AI was created, including brand new language support for the Slovenian language, and what were the ingredients that made the increase in NPS possible, and how can you do the same. So if you are interested in attending that, please go to vux.world/events. That will redirect you straight to the landing page. You can find out more and you can sign up. That is vux.world/events. And there we go. Looking forward to that. But even more looking forward to this conversation, Fabio, with yourself. And thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
Do you want to tell us, for those that are tuning in, a little bit about Scotiabank for those people who are not based in Canada? And at the moment, you are the senior AI and ML product manager at Scotiabank. So do you want to tell us a bit about your kind of role there as well, and what you get up to over there?
No, absolutely. So Scotiabank is one of the top three banks in Canada. It's it has operations just not only in Canada but all over the world, especially in the Latin American markets. We are top 5 bank in very important markets to us, such as Mexico, Chile, Colombia, and Peru. We also have a presence in the US as a wholesale bank. It's a 200-year-old financial institution, very solid, and yeah, it's a great place to work, and I've been having a lot of fun here, for sure. About a little bit about myself. So I've been working as product manager for almost 6 years now. I'm Brazilian, so started in Brazil, and then I've moved to Canada, and my first role here in Canada was working for an airline company as product owner, product manager, like helping them building their chatbot, right? And that was my main first interaction with conversational AI. That has been an amazing journey, very crazy one. Been learning a lot, and I hopefully been able to share my experience, the experience that I accumulated there and that's being accumulated here, but like also with the Scotiabankers. And yeah, I think we've been building a great solution. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of remit at Scotiabank then as a product owner? What is your kind of like what does a day in the life of Fabio look like?
Yeah. So I am right now. I work for the data and analytics team. More specifically, I work in the team that is responsible for delivering AI and ML solutions for corporate functions in the bank. So, and when we're thinking about chatbots, there's a strong relation with contact center, right? Like most chatbots are to help customers self-serve, right, and alleviate some of the pressure that the contact centers have. So I am basically responsible for anything that is related to the chatbot from an AI perspective. So from implementation to training, involving in conversational design, content management, system management, like manage and integration with the tools that we have. And that's basically how I spend most of my days. Now that we have launched it, but we have launched it in June. My days are like I've been spending most of my time ensuring that the bot is responding correctly to customers, right, and fine tuning the chatbot. Also working with designers and content managers, and in a way to improve the flows and the content, and most of my time has been dedicated to this right now. Yeah, that's it.
Nice. So I'm maybe just jumping ahead a little bit here, but this question popped into my head, which is, you just launched a chatbot at Scotiabank.
Yeah.
There's two ways of approaching launching a chatbot, or any digital product for that matter, really. But with conversational AI, you've got a decision to make, which is, do you go live in the first instance with essentially the full scope of what this thing should be able to do? Or do you go live with one or two use cases solving very specific narrow problems, and you kind of put the chatbot into a place on the website where those problems surface, and then you kind of increase the scope of it incrementally over time? So, for example, one route would be maybe for in a banking use case, it may be that a chatbot that one use case could be, I don't know, inquiring about opening a new savings account, for argument's sake, and you'd only put that chatbot on the banking savings account page so that conversation is scoped and defined based on the context of the website. Then you would steadily add a new use case to it and all that kind of stuff. Or you can build the whole thing, make some informed decisions about what it should do, create the entire thing, put the whole thing live, and then try and improve the whole thing. Which kind of approach did you take?
So we took the second one. we basically the chatbot right now is available in the mobile app for basically Scotiabank customers. So in that way, you already filter some types of questions, right? Like it's basically tailored for customers that are trying to achieve something, right? Either because they are having a problem or because they want to make a transfer or they want to check their credit scores, or right. There's lots of use cases. But that was already a way to kind of refine what to build, right? But it's basically open to any types of retail bank questions I think that customers may have. That is a challenge by itself, right? And there was a lot of time and thought in order to identify these use cases. What are the most relevant use cases, right? Because how do you build something that is for everybody in the beginning? So that's kind of the approach that the bank decided to take. So this is what we did, right? So we spent quite some time, trying to identify these use cases, testing them. So we first built a proof of concept. That was the first thing we did when I arrived. I joined Scotia a year and a half ago, more or less. So and it was just the beginning of the project. So first task is, okay, let's build a proof of concept. Let's share this with internal stakeholders, just so that they see how it would look like, right? What kind of experiences we could provide, and from there would be learnings, and we would understand these learnings and keep building while the bank was preparing to launch the bot. We do a lot of things in house, right? So all the front end, because it's integrated with the mobile app. So the front end, like all the integration layers, we have live agents, right? So how we connect with the live agent service, everything was built in house. So while we were doing this, we took the time to start training, or like identifying intents, training them, and then going from there until we understood that we were covering a good range of questions, right? And then that's when we saw that we were ready to put like in front of customers, start putting in front of customers and interacting from there, right? But we first built a proof of concept. Again, like I said, very simple, with a few maybe a few dozen intents. From that, we then worked. We had a few sources of information that helped us. So one is Scotiabank has an FAQ page in our website, and we leverage what kind of questions or articles that customers would be going and accessing. So that was one. Scotiabank has a subsidiary bank in Canada called Tangerine, and we were fortunate that helped us also because they already had a chatbot, and we also leveraged their chat logs and things that customers were asking there, and then we also reviewed a few thousand phone calls also to understand, because again, the same banks but different banks, so different products and different types of customers. So we reinforced that also with a few thousand phone calls that we understood what was the main reason, and then all of those things, they guided us on what to build, right? And of course, because you have lots of experiences and lots of intents, initially they are not super detailed as well. So this is right now. The chatbot is currently helping customers to either self-serve. So if we already have solutions in which they can go and self-serve and solve the problems that they're looking for, we are going to point them to that. But the chatbot is, like I like to say, is the first line of defense, right? The chatbot itself, I think for more complex use cases, it's probably not the best tool yet, right? Like the technology is evolving and it's going to keep evolving, but for now, it's probably not the best tool. So then this is when we leverage the live agents, right? So once we detect that a question or like that, once they fall like into specific intents, we identify that, and then we offer an agent that can support them with their questions, right? So that's kind of how we viewed it or decided, so that we could meet the desire of having, a chatbot that was capable of understanding different types of questions.
Interesting. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. So at the moment, so you're starting out with a proof of concept.
Yeah.
You're using, was it called Tangerine, that bank?
Tangerine is the subsidiary. Yes.
The subsidiary. Yeah. What a cool name.
Yeah.
Tangerine. I like that. So you're using their chat logs. You're using a few thousand calls which you're analyzing. Presumably, you're using some kind of tool to do some topic modeling and stuff like that to try and figure out what's going on there. And FAQ pages on the website, sort of that. So you're using data. Was that stuff done before the proof of concept, or was the proof of concept done like based on assumptions to show that this thing can work, and then you got down to the data to get it through to actually turn it into something that's production ready?
It was actually made made in parallel.
All right.
So we received the data. So for example, from Tangerine or the data from the website that was readily available. So the first step is basically trying to understand, right? Especially I was arriving at the bank, so I was also acquiring the knowledge. There were some people that, of course, were more experienced than me on that area, but we looked at this together, and then we have identified the common topics, right? Like, or the topics that would make more sense to start designing an experience, and that was the source of the main source for us to start training, right? And we quickly created a few, again, simple experiences that just so internally we could see, okay, how it would look like. Does that make sense? Is that the way that we want this to go, right? And as it proved to be a good idea or successful, then we started to move forward. But that process took probably, I don't know, 2.5 months. While again, working in a big institution, there's a lot of processes. Have to approve budgets, you have to set up teams. So while all of these things were happening before the actual chatbot, like the work started to be done, we were leveraging that time and working on the proof of concept, right? So always trying to see how we can best leverage the time that we have, considering that there is some processes that we need to obey and follow, like in the bank, right? And how we can make best use of it and start learning, right? From the experiences that we're doing.
Interesting. Yeah, we can definitely get into some of those challenges, because I know that obviously when you're trying to move fast in an organization that is more traditional in nature, it can often be quite a challenge. But So you're creating the proof of concept. You're using the FAQ pages, and you're kind of filling in the time whilst the business is organising itself and figuring out what resources it needs and where it's going to get data from and all that kind of stuff. Then you start ingesting real customer data. At what point was it decided around the scope of the assistant? So you know what you have now, it sounds as though, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds as though the assistant today answers questions, signposts to self-service options where those things may be complex. If it's very complex, recognizing the intent, it will hand over to a live agent. Does it do it? Does it have any kind of like self-service fulfillment in there at the moment, or is it?
So transactional experiences are coming. We are working on that, but right now it's more like the chatbot helps customers to with triaging or like trying to find their way, how are the best ways for them to kind of try to solve their problems, or try to understand the reason behind problems that they may be having, or where to execute some tasks, right? Because sometimes we again, a bank is full of processes, full of products. Sometimes it's not always easy for customers to find what they are looking for. Right, so the chatbot helps a lot with that, and again, yes, if we recognize that it's a very complex request or a complex experience, we take them to an agent, right? There is a lot of, especially with banks, there's lots of questions about specific transactions that you have, like people that sometimes they don't recognize specific transactions. So what is that? Like, what happened? And then, of course, you're probably gonna need the support of someone to kind of understand exactly what was going on. Sometimes you need to speak with a vendor. So again, the more complex scenarios, right? So in those kind of scenarios, yes, we certainly leverage live agents to help the customers.
Yeah, nice. So at some point in time, there is a decision made, which is that decision basically. Which use cases need to be escalated to live agents? Which use cases do we signpost? Which questions can we answer? But then before that, there's a decision that's made, which is going back to my question before, which is, where do we start? Do we try and solve a very specific, narrow problem over here, or do we go high and wide, straight into the mobile app? We try and capture all of the intents and determine how to solve it. I'm wondering if you can share anything on how that kind of decision was made about the strategy towards whether we do try and capture everything high and wide, or whether we focus on a narrow kind of problem. Was it always the case that it was going to be a digital assistant in the mobile app answering and catering for everything, or was it a decision that was got to at some point?
So I think overall the bank was pretty straightforward about what it wanted to achieve with the chatbot, and again, the idea, I think, from the beginning was having an assistant that would be able to understand or comprehend different types of topics, right? And not only a specific use case. I think the main interest was, again, trying to make sure that the bot is able to help customers with their most frequently asked problems, right? Rather than just solve on a specific use case. Even because we are still working on ways to make it more transactional, right? So because we still don't have that anyways. If you would focus just on like 1 or 2 or 3 use cases, you would probably not be able to go deeper and serve customers like in the best way anyways, right? So I think most of the decision is around that. So what kind of from another component, right? Like what kind of services that we could immediately leverage, right? And so that we could build, the chatbot and put it in front of customers, and allow them to use and to serve, right? To self-serve.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we've gone through proof of concept. We've gone through this big data kind of analysis process. There is before going live, there is inevitably the kind of the design and build process. As you're ingesting this data and you're prioritizing your use cases and you're figuring out what services you have to be able to deliver on which kind of intents and what you're going to do and how you're going to handle each kind of question and all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering whether you can talk us through your sort of approach to that sort of design and development sort of process. Do you have conversation designers? Was there a design process, and then how does that lead into development? And whether you can walk us through some of those kind of stages.
Yeah. So basically, once we have identified the relevant topics, right, like the intent that we want to create, then while we were doing the training, and again, because once you were designing and creating the copy and the content, one of the challenges is validation, right? There are a lot of different people or teams that we need to get involved so that the content is finally approved. So while we were training, once we have defined these intents, we also started working on the content. And basically, the approach that we took is let's say you have an intent that deal with a problem, right, or an issue. Because the bot is helping customers to understand their problems and kind of provide ways that they can self-serve first. We partner with different teams, so the contact center team, also like we have the conversational designers and content strategists with us. And basically the starting point is assuming that you were speaking with someone, right? So imagining that the chatbot is one of our live agents, right? What kind of questions do we need to make or do we need to ask the customer so we understand what kind of guidance we need to provide them, right? So because again, when customers are asking questions, they can be sometimes they are very generic, sometimes they are very specific, right? So with that in mind, we design thinking about the generic ask first, right? So we ask these follow-up questions and we design thinking of these follow-up questions until we have a response to provide. That's how we do. And we leverage, again, not only the AI, but entities, right? So to identify specific keywords in the utterances so that once we identify these keywords, we may skip some of these questions that we ask, right? So, for example, there is a difference between saying, I want to make a transfer, of I want to make a wire transfer, for example. They're both the same intent, but because I identify wire transfer, I don't need to ask what kind of transfer you would like to make, because there are, lots of different options of making transfers. Or so the more information we design in a way that we try to capture, types of utterances, what kind of information customers may provide. So we design a way that we can skip these questions and then provide the more straightforward answer, right? Or if we cannot detect or understand, then we ask these follow-up questions, right? And then provide. So that's basically, I think, the main strategy behind how we build our conversational flows. It's been proving very successful. I think we've been able to provide very, very straightforward experiences when possible, and then when not possible, of course, they get a little longer, but it's important so we can provide the most accurate answer to customers, right?
Nice. And then what about the sort of the build and implementation process? So obviously it's a very large bank. We mentioned this before we kind of got on air, and this is not uncommon for banks, which is that very large, very complex, very heavily regulated. So privacy and security, huge concerns. Very rarely does a bank kind of outsource this kind of stuff. Often it's kind of done in-house. We've got a guide actually for those of you tuning in. It's a buy versus build guide, and in there is I've kind of identified 6 different approaches to doing this. So one is if you want to build it yourself, then one is that you can build it yourself from scratch, like from the ground up. You build all of your own ML models, all of your own NLU, all of your own speech recognition, all that kind of stuff, your own dialogue management, build everything yourself from the ground up. And this is what like Deutsche Telekom have done this kind of approach. I think BMW done a very similar thing. You've then got a kind of component-based approach, which is you can use existing third-party components and stitch them together and customize them on top in order to give you the capabilities that you need. And so most organizations that say they're building stuff tend to do that approach, you know. And then you've got a platform. You can bring in a platform which kind of handles a lot of the complexity under the hood, probably doesn't give you quite as much flexibility and all that kind of stuff, but at least opens up the access to less technical people. You've got the kind of acquire approach, which is go and buy a company that does what you want them to do and bring that in-house. And then you've got kind of like the more kind of buy side, which is like, you know, find an assistant that's already pre-configured and pre-built and bring that in and plug your own APIs into it. And then the other one is just outsource the whole thing, you know, find another company to go and kind of to take it off your plate kind of thing. So there's probably other ways of doing it potentially, but those are the kind of 6 that I've identified most organizations do. Not necessarily asking for you to kind of, you know, share exactly the details of the philosophy and all this kind of stuff, but wondering whether you can share a little bit around the approach to the development and implementation side of things, and how you kind of take that data that you've got and you've analyzed, you've understood from the conversation design part which intents can be answered, which can be kind of, you know, cut in half, or the interaction can be shortened. You've designed those conversational patterns. How do you approach kind of getting this thing up and running and working?
So we like the bank decision was to basically, I think, dominate most of or manage most of the experience, right? I think the idea is to build a solution that is customized or tailored for ourselves as possible, right? So most of the solution was built by us. Of course, we have a few partnerships with that integrates with the solution that we have, but it's mostly made by us, especially also because, again, as you mentioned, so 2 reasons. One is, yes, have control over the experience and how exactly we want to share that with customers. So that's one thing. The other thing is being careful with customer data, right? That's, again, I think that's a pillar for financial institutions, and it's no different with Scotiabank. So we've built, for example, layers that help us capturing or masking any personal information before we share with third parties, for example, right? That I think is part of the complexity, and you know, I think the time that it takes to build things and put into the market, right? Like how you build it in a way that yes, you're protecting your customers, right, and preventing any kind of data leaks and things like that. So that's certainly something that we are doing, and we have done, and we are always working towards this. Even as we are, you know, discussing and starting to develop more transactional intents, right? So that discussion still holds, because then how you are going to capture or share more like customer data, right? So how do you do that in a way that the data is protected so the customer can see it, right? Or we can capture the data from the customer and use it to process these transaction intent. But we, again, at the same time, we don't share that with third parties, right?
Absolutely. You definitely get a hell of a lot more control doing it that way.
Yeah.
And I think you're also able to create, I mean, in this report, if anyone wants to look at it, you just go to vux.world and there's a guides option, and you can just click on guides and then you can download it. I've identified 7 kind of considerations for whether you should buy versus build, and I've kind of like scored each one against each other, benchmarked each post against each other. And the 7 is differentiation, complexity, time to value, control, scalability, cost, and maintenance. And the thing with building either from scratch or using components or a hybrid of the two is that inevitably you get it's the single solution that gets you the most control, because you can control every single part about it. All of the data, as you mentioned, where it's stored, who gets access to it, how long it's stored for, what data you capture, whether you want to scrub it and cleanse it, all this kind of stuff, you get complete control. And also, you because you've got so much control, you can then differentiate as much as you want. You're not confined by the scope of the platform and the features that it dictates you can
exactly.
use.
Exactly.
You can basically differentiate immensely, which is two really important kind of things.
Absolutely, totally in agreement.
Yeah. So we've got to the point now then where it's built. You said you launched in June.
Yes.
What was the kind of launch like? Again, you can do it big bang, or you can do it slow and steady, incrementally. A little bit of traffic, do some analysis, do some improvement, a bit more traffic, roll it out over time. What was the kind of approach to rolling it out in June?
So it was the second. It was the second approach for I think a couple of reasons. First one is again we have a live agent operation, right? And as much as you expect certain volumes, right, and you study and you project, you never know. Like it's like paraphrasing Forrest Gump. It's kind of a box of chocolate, right? You never know what you're gonna get. So we adopted the drip strategy, right? So we launched initially to very few customers. Like first, actually, there was a beta with just internal customers, or employees, that we also used to learn. We built intents, right? Like we built the structure and we used that first interaction to learn how people were interacting with the bot, the actual bot. That was useful, but nothing like real customer references, because if you don't really have a problem, you're probably going to ask a few questions, the bot is going to work, but we really need customer references to see if it's really working. But so we had that period. Then we launched to customers, so 1%, 5%, 20%, so we kept increasing it. And you use that period for two things. So the first one is fine-tuning that operation that I was talking about. And the second one is to validate that all the training that we have worked on and the experiences that we have built, they are making sense, right? So for that, we look at, I think, 3 important KPIs, at least to us. One, and maybe the one that I was mostly concerned about, and I am super concerned about, is what we call accuracy. So basically, we had our team, our data science team, our trainers, at first reviewing customer utterances, trying to understand if the bot was really responding correctly, right? We reviewed a few thousand utterances to give us that that confidence that the bot was working out. The second one is coverage. So are we really? So we built all of these intents, right? Are we really covering all the most frequently asked questions, or there are intents that we need to create that for some reason we missed from all that analysis that we did before, that needs to be created? And then the third one, so these two are, I think, in the beginning are more, like, to us, were more important, because if the bot doesn't understand correctly from the beginning, even if the journey is perfectly designed, if you're not getting there, right, then this is going to be a problem. So the initial focus was on that, and then as we are ensuring that the bot is achieving very good levels of accuracy, we are covering questions. Now we're looking more at the conversation. So the third metric is abandonment, right? Like from a specific flows, right? So once you ask a question, and if we detect that customers are leaving those conversations, then this is also like source of or inputs for us to sit down with the designers. So okay, how do we take care of that, right? And then from there keep enhancing the experience. That's part of, I think, the strategy, and like not only the launch strategy, but I think just also touching a little bit about sustainment, right? How we are actually working to ensure that the body's again working properly, and we are currently still in that trip strategy. We still haven't launched fully to all customers. This is happening soon as we are again fine tuning the operation. But I feel that our results, so far have been pretty good. I think we're pretty happy with what we're achieving so far, and also the perspectives, right? And what the chatbot will be able to help us now and in the future for sure.
Interesting. You mentioned coverage there. One of the things I spoke about at the VUX at Voice Summit was the kind of what are the components of scaling a conversational AI operation. And one of the things, literally, I had to go and pull my slides up to refresh my memory on it, but one of the things is coverage. So are you covering all of the things that people are saying to it? So that's good to hear. The other is availability in terms of on which channels is this available. If you're going to scale, you may start with a chatbot, but then it may be that you're looking at IVR or you're looking at messaging or you're looking at other channels to get into.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is adoption. So just because something exists in those channels doesn't necessarily mean that it's being used. And so, typically chatbots on a website, for example, there's a little icon in the bottom corner, and you're kind of relying on people finding that icon and clicking on it, or maybe it's a timed pop-up, and hopefully someone will gravitate towards it. And so one of the things that I don't hear that many people discussing is ways to get adoption. I mean, it's different in the contact center with IVR and stuff like that, because if someone calls up and you get put into talk to a bot, you're going to just talk to it. You might just say get me to an agent or whatever, but it's unavoidable default adoption. Whereas on websites specifically, and in some cases in mobile, you're kind of relying on the user gravitating towards it. So I'm curious around from your launch strategy. I know that it's kind of been drip fed and it's not fully live to everybody just yet, but is there anything that you're like, one, what is the adoption? You don't have to share any numbers, but in terms of like the number of people using it, was that kind of what you expected? And then in terms of like percentage of total users, like was the percentage of usage what you expected? And then how are you thinking about adoption in general? Like, do you do anything, or will you be doing anything to try and encourage adoption, or do you think that actually just default adoption, just having it being there, is actually good in terms of volume?
So no. So a few comments about that. I think in general the usage has been quite good. The bot is available in the mobile app. It's not like for you to get to there, you need to go to a contact us page, and so it's not immediately available, and that's for a reason. Again, we want to make sure that everything is properly fine-tuned, right? Before really start to scaling it. So it's not, of course, usage is a concern. Of course, we want people to use it, and we are building for that. And we are excited about the opportunities that are there, but it's not the main concern, I think, right now. Right now is, okay, how, like, do I have, like, is it working correct? Is it working well? Is it like, are people experience, like, the transition to a live agent? Is that working fine? Are the agents, like, do we have agents to cover the volumes that we have now, right? And then from there, certainly there are plans to market it, right? And make it more available. So then, more customers we are going to to use it, right? But this is, I think this at this point, at the stage that we are, because it's recently launched. It's more about ensuring that things are well, right? The experience is going well, and what kind of problems and bugs, because every time that you launch a new product, a new feature, there are things that you need to work, right? So are we taking care of them, right? Like fixing them. So, and then yes, I think in a couple of weeks, whoever here is here in Canada is probably going to start seeing some some more comments about it, right? For sure. One thing that I forgot to mention, of course, like another important metric for us is customer satisfaction, right? So like from a training perspective, I think, and also because of the volume of utterances that we review and conversations that we review, we end up catching a lot of opportunities that sometimes people don't verbalize in the surveys, right? But we are also looking into that, right? Like once we detect that people are unhappy about a specific scenario or about a specific issue that they're having, of course we are looking into that and use that as a source of not only the chatbot experience, but again. For live agents or like even for the chat tool itself, right? Like we've been working on that for sure.
So are you talking there about some, the fact that when you've got this conversational assistant there, anyone can say anything to it, and therefore you're picking up bits of insight that you previously weren't aware of? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like from the feedback perspective, yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But from a training perspective, yes, because since we are again reviewing and just to ensure that the body is accurate, right? But because we are reviewing a few thousands of utterances, I identify things that I see that is the wrong, right? From a training perspective, of course, because you are asking A and the body's answering with B, and say, okay, we have to fix that, right? So that from that perspective, but also from the content and conversational design perspective too, because sometimes you ask questions and the question is matched correctly with a specific intent, but you identify that the answer is probably sometimes it's not covering that specific aspect, right? So this is all like a cycle. Like we look at these things, we identify these opportunities, and then they all feed into the conversational design team, who is use this source of feedback, internal feedback to make improvements, right? And this is very important to us because again. Like I see that people are more and more using chatbots. I was just seeing a research that was shared this week. I think Wells Fargo, which is an American bank, right? They are. I've seen in some news they are launching their chatbot this week, and there was a study with that says that 50% of Americans have used a chatbot for a financial institution, and then 25% in the past 3 months, right? This is huge, right? There's a lot of opportunity there. So, ensuring that we are getting ready and prepared to this massive volume that is coming. When I'm pretty sure that it is. It's very exciting time, right? So we are working to ensure that we are up to the challenge, and yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that study was interesting because it was also saying that it was something like 30, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was somewhere in the region of 30 or so percent of, I think it might have been under 25s, have it as an expectation and a preference, which is that like not only is it, it's there and it's being used, it's actually that for the people who are now opening banks today, it's an expectation and it's a preferred method. Because everyone who is a certain age is texting, and it's all asynchronous, which is really interesting. The people don't really seem these days to be that bothered about immediacy as much as they perhaps were. it's all asynchronous. Quite happy to use messaging channels and wait for a response while I do something else and stuff like that. So it
This
really
this
is.
new generation is equipped with that chip, right? Like it's either like chat tools or voice, right?
Mm,
I have a daughter, my 80-year-old, and just a small like
yeah.
she heard that I was here and said, "Oh, you have to talk about me because I want to be on YouTube." So I'm talking about her, but she uses voice tools all the time, voice assistants, right? Like it's part of she's playing games and use voice to verbalize what she wants to communicate with other people, right? So this new generation is all about voice and chat tools. So
Mm,
we are certainly getting ready for that.
absolutely, yeah. My
Yeah.
son is 4, and he now, over the last few weeks, for ages he hasn't bothered, but when he was a real baby, he started to try and say Alexa, but he couldn't. He couldn't say the next thing of what he wanted. Whereas now, he's literally like Alexa, and it's something like he doesn't quite know YouTube, Netflix, and Prime Video are 3 separate services. So he'll say, Alexa, play Thomas on Prime Video YouTube, because he wants to watch Thomas the Tank Engine. So he's saying, play Thomas on Prime Video YouTube. but sometimes it works though, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's definitely an expected thing. And you mentioned there, and I think quite rightly, that you're concentrating on getting the product working before promoting it and rolling out the big marketing push and stuff like that, which is exactly what you should be doing, isn't it? I use the restaurant analogy all the time, which is that a restaurant should have its menu figured out and have food that tastes good and processes that mean that the chefs can cook the food in a timely fashion and it's good stuff before you go trying to get people through the door to serve it to. You want to fix your menu, fix your food, fix your operations,
Yeah.
and make sure that you can do it before you bring people in. And so I think a lot of teams sometimes get a little bit ahead of themselves. They'll launch something to everybody a bit too early, and then they wonder why it's not really working. And they haven't fixed their operations, and so they're making basic mistakes around not using real data to train their intents and stuff like that, and they end up getting mixed up in a whole world of madness, which is good.
Just to connect with that, with your initial question too about the strategy, right? Like why deciding for launching a bot that is capable of understanding lots of topics instead of focusing on just one experience, right? I think our strategy also involves this experimentation and learning along the way. So we are gonna get there in terms of usage and volumes. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be huge, but one of the reasons also of launching a bunch of different intents was to try to exactly understand what people were interacting more, right? And learn from there. And we are trying to be careful with the experiences that we want to personalize more. What are the really the really good use cases that we can now that we know and we see how people are interacting with it, we can get and let's make it better. Let's take them to the next level, because it's costly to build and it's super time consuming to build these experiences, right? And having more information and see how people are interacting with your chatbot, it allows us to get there, and now we are entering another stage in which we are certainly going to do that, right? So that is, I think that is part of the decision also behind why we follow the specific strategy I didn't mention in the beginning, but I think it's still time to complement.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's an approach that a lot of companies take anyway, especially also in the IVR kind of contact center IVR space. It's very common because if you can figure out and you can map all of your high level intents and then just simply route someone to the right place, at least then you've got an actual proper accurate picture of exactly the demand, where the demand is, and specifically how people are asking for certain things. And once you've built that initial language model, all it's then a case of is saying, okay, well, now that we've got this language model, where's all of the demand now? oh, well, all the demand actually is circulating around these 5 intents. Okay, so how do we automate these 5 intents? At the moment, they're just
Yeah.
pointing people off here. How can we, where do we start to actually start automating this stuff end to end? And it also helps, we haven't really got to the conversation of internal business support and stuff like that, but it helps in that respect, doesn't it? Because you can then say, look, out of 10,000 conversations, 6,000 of them have been around these 5 intents, and all we're doing is handing them over to a live agent. So how can we get our resources and our strategy in line to try and tackle some of this? Because you're able to prove it. You're not just saying, I think we should do this, finger in the air stuff. It's all based on the actual volume that's coming through,
Yeah, and then also there's another thing, which is yeah, you mentioned correctly. This is a long tail game, right? So yes, you have certain intents that are kind of top of mind. Everybody asks about them, but you still can help like customers that have more specific questions, and they are repeatable and easy to identify, and that can alleviate the contact center team, right? So we try to do that as well, and I think it's been proving successful. Of course, it's always hard. The more intents you have, the harder it is to train, because intents get confused, right? There are additional challenges, but I think right now, from what I'm seeing, we've been pretty successful in managing that. Like, I think our again, the way we decided to build intents, that approach that I was telling you about, starting from starting from more generic approach to a more specific approach, that also helps reducing the number of intents. But like the strategy has been proving as very successful, so that helps too.
Nice, wicked. And what are the sort of intended benefits to the business from this kind of initiative? Is it a customer experience play? Is it trying to lighten the load for the contact center agents? Like, what are some of those kind of drivers behind what the business is expecting out of this once it kind of reaches its fully fledged version?
Yeah, so I can tell you that customers were requesting a chat tool. So that's a way to interact with the bank again via chat. We touched a little bit about that. So that there's this aspect of it. So how to create an experience in which customers can be happy and find what they're looking for, and interacting with the bank and finding their information. So there's this aspect. There's also another, of course, important aspect, which is alleviate some of the pressure on contact center, right? Because again, for those use cases that are repeatable and sometimes easy to solve, a chatbot is certainly a very good tool to help, right? So I think there are these two aspects on the equation. So I think both customer satisfaction and customer experience, but also supporting the contact center, right? So there's this duality for sure.
Fantastic. Well, Fabio, this has been an absolute pleasure. The hour has flown by.
Yeah.
We're just getting started. But thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah. My pleasure.
Yeah,
we could stay for more.
We could stay all day, I think. Yeah. Spark up a cigar and get ourselves a beer. We'll be here all night.
Oh yeah.
Nice, wicked. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, definitely. I love the approach. I love the kind of calculated approach. Small steps consistently over time, always doing the right thing, always making decisions based on data. And I think that the whole strategy and the approach has been fantastic. I'm glad to hear it's going well, and good luck for not just the full blown rollout, but also where it goes after that. Channel expansion, use case expansion, automation, transactional use cases. The kind of world is the oyster, isn't it? Once you're up and running.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for inviting me. It was a real pleasure.
No problem. Appreciate it. Appreciate you spending the time with me. It really is. Really appreciate it. And for those of you tuning in, don't forget, go to vux.world/events to join me on the webinar with Alexandra Bedar-Turk of Nova KBM next Thursday. And if you want to download that buy versus build guide, then please just go to the website vux.world. There's a little guides tab. Click on that. You can download it. It's literally 45 pages worth of how to decide whether you should build or buy. There's a lot of effort gone into that. And if anyone downloads this who genuinely needs it and gets to the end of this document and cannot make a decision about whether to build or buy as part of your strategy, then I will eat my own hat. So do that. And we'll see you for the next one next week. Thank you.